Scene 1. A rainy, deserted small town at night. Sound, rain tapping on windows, distant thunder rumbling. Narrator, calm, eerie tone. Emma had always been drawn to old houses. So when she found the Willow House, abandoned for decades on the edge of Maplewood, she couldn't resist. Sound, footsteps crunching on gravel as she approaches the house. Narrator. The house was quiet, too quiet. Its windows stared at her like empty eyes. She unlocked the door, and the smell hit her immediately, damp wood, dust, and something metallic. Sound, door creaking open, wind whistling through broken panes. Narrator. Inside, everything was still. The faint outline of furniture covered in white sheets created ghostly shapes. Emma felt a chill, but she shrugged it off. She was alone. She had to be. Sound, footsteps echoing across wooden floorboards. Narrator. As she unpacked, she noticed a mirror leaning against the wall. Something about it made her uneasy. Wiping away the dust, she caught her reflection, and something behind her. Sound, a low hum, almost like a heartbeat. Narrator. She spun around. Nothing. Just the empty room. But when she looked back at the mirror, the shadow was still there, tall, dark, silent. Sound, sudden, sharp knock at the front door. Narrator. Emma froze. No one was supposed to visit. She slowly opened the door. Nothing. Just the rain, and a single wet footprint leading into the house. Sound, whisper in the distance, almost inaudible, Emma. Narrator, whispering, tense. Emma's heart raced. She should leave. She should call for help. But something held her there, a presence that refused to let her go. Pause, sound of a floorboard creaking behind her. Narrator. And that's when she realized, the house already had a guest. And it wasn't planning to leave. Emma tried to calm herself. It's just an old house, she told herself. But the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave. Every creak of the floor, every gust of wind sounded like footsteps following her. Sound, footsteps echoing faintly behind her, but she is alone. Narrator. She moved toward the staircase, flashlight in hand. The beam barely reached the top. That's when she saw them, shadows flickering on the walls. Not her own, something else. Something moving with intent. Sound, low, distorted whispers growing louder, like hundreds of voices murmuring at once. Narrator. Emma froze. The whispers seemed to echo her name, Emma. Emma. Her heart raced, and for a moment, she felt paralyzed. Then, a shadow detached itself from the wall and darted across the hallway. Sound, door slamming somewhere upstairs. Narrator. Emma's instinct screamed at her to run, but curiosity, or maybe fear itself, kept her rooted to the spot. She crept upstairs, each step louder than the last, her flashlight trembling in her hand. Sound, floorboards creaking with each step, whispering growing more distinct. Narrator. At the end of the hallway, she saw it, a door slightly ajar. From inside, the shadows moved on their own, twisting and bending, like dark smoke forming shapes she couldn't comprehend. Sound, a sudden sharp gasp as the door slowly opens wider. Narrator, whispering. Inside, nothing was visible. But the air was thick, heavy, alive. And then she felt it. A cold hand brush against her shoulder. She spun around, again, nothing. But the whispers were closer now. Sound, a low growl, almost human, almost something else. Narrator. Emma realized the house wasn't just haunted. It was alive. And whatever lived here had been waiting for her. Pause, long tense silence with faint whispers lingering. Narrator, breathless, panicked. She backed away slowly, her mind screaming to leave. But as she turned to run, the hallway behind her stretched further than it should have, walls bending into darkness she had never seen before. Sound, footsteps behind her, faster now, echoing but invisible. Narrator. Emma knew one terrifying truth. The house didn't just want to scare her. It wanted her inside. Forever. Sound, rain tapping harder on the roof, wind howling through broken windows. Narrator, tense, whispering. Emma tried to calm herself. It's just an old house, she told herself. But the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave. Every creak of the floor, every gust of wind sounded like footsteps following her. Sound, footsteps echoing faintly behind her, but she is alone. Narrator. She moved toward the staircase, flashlight in hand. The beam barely reached the top. That's when she saw them, shadows flickering on the walls. Not her own, something else. Something moving with intent. Sound, low, distorted whispers growing louder, like hundreds of voices murmuring at once. Narrator. Emma froze. The whispers seemed to echo her name, Emma. Emma. Her heart raced, and for a moment, she felt paralyzed. Then, a shadow detached itself from the wall and darted across the hallway. Sound, door slamming somewhere upstairs. Narrator. Emma's instinct screamed at her to run, but curiosity, or maybe fear itself, kept her rooted to the spot. She crept upstairs, each step louder than the last, her flashlight trembling in her hand. Sound, floorboards creaking with each step, whispering growing more distinct. Narrator. At the end of the hallway, she saw it, a door slightly ajar. From inside, the shadows moved on their own, twisting and bending, like dark smoke forming shapes she couldn't comprehend. Sound, a sudden sharp gasp as the door slowly opens wider. Narrator, whispering. Inside, nothing was visible. But the air was thick, heavy, alive. And then she felt it. A cold hand brush against her shoulder. She spun around, again, nothing. But the whispers were closer now. Sound, heavy rain, distant thunder, occasional creaking of floorboards. Narrator, whispering, tense. Emma ran up the twisting staircase, desperate to find some sign of reality, some proof that she wasn't losing her mind. But every step echoed louder than it should have, bouncing off walls that seemed to stretch and bend. Sound, footsteps following her, but faster, lighter, almost floating. Narrator. At the top, she found the attic door. It was slightly open, light spilling from within, but not warm light. A sickly pale glow that made the shadows dance like living things. Sound, wind howling through the broken attic window, faint whispering continues. Narrator. Emma hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, but curiosity, and terror, pulled her forward. She pushed the door. The air inside was ice cold. Her breath came out in clouds. Sound, soft scratching from the corner of the attic, growing louder. Narrator. In the corner, a figure moved. Not fully visible, just a mass of darkness that seemed to ripple and twist. And then it whispered, clear this time, "Why are you here?" Sound, low, echoing, almost like multiple voices speaking in unison. Narrator, voice shaking. Emma stumbled backward. I didn't mean to," she stammered. But the figure had already glided closer, silently, as if the shadows themselves had taken shape. Sound, rapid scratching across wooden floor, then a deep hollow exhale. Narrator. She backed into the far wall, heart hammering. The shadows stretched along the floor, climbing up the walls, twisting into shapes too grotesque to comprehend. The house was no longer just a house, it was a predator, and she was its prey. Sound, door slamming shut behind her, cutting off escape, heavy breathing. Narrator, whispering, terrified. And then she felt it, cold fingers brushing her neck, the unmistakable weight of something breathing down her shoulder. She turned, and the corner was empty. But the whispers were louder now, circling, chanting her name, "Emma, stay." Pause, tense silence, sound of attic window rattling violently. Narrator. Emma realized the truth too late. The house didn't want her to leave. It wanted her to see, to understand, that she had walked into something older, darker, and more alive than anything she had ever imagined. Sound, faint scratching grows into a heavy dragging noise, like something moving closer through the shadows. Narrator. And as the shadows reached toward her, Emma screamed. Sound, rain pounding, wind howling, floorboards creaking under invisible weight. Narrator, tense, breathless. Emma's heart was racing. Every instinct screamed to run, but the attic door slammed shut behind her, trapping her inside. The shadows had grown, stretching, twisting, almost alive. Sound, low growls echoing, whispers merging into unintelligible murmurs. Narrator. She tried to back away, but the floor beneath her seemed to breathe, rising and falling like the chest of a sleeping giant. Then she saw it, a shape forming from the shadows. Not human, not fully, but intelligent. It watched her, analyzing her every move. Sound, deep, hollow exhale, floorboards creaking violently. Narrator. Emma realized this was no ordinary haunting. The Willow House had a consciousness, and it was angry. Every corner, every shadow, every whisper seemed connected, feeding off her fear. Sound, soft scratching growing into frantic, rapid movements all around. Narrator, whispering, horrified. In a corner, she saw old photographs on the wall. Faces of past residents, twisted, screaming, eyes blacked out. Each one, trapped. Their souls, bound to the house. And now, she could feel it. The house wanted her too. Sound, floor shakes slightly, dust falling from the ceiling. Narrator. She ran to the attic window, desperate to escape. But outside, the world had changed. Rain poured sideways, shadows stretched across the landscape like fingers. There was no escape. The house wasn't just behind her, it was everywhere. Sound, whispering voices chanting her name louder. Emma, stay, stay. Narrator. Emma screamed. She pounded on the window, on the walls, trying to break free. But the shadows coiled around her ankles, creeping up her legs, cold and unyielding. And then she heard it, a voice soft, almost human. Sound, whisper, calm and sinister. You can't leave, not anymore. Narrator, voice trembling. The realization hit her like ice. This was her fate. Just like the others. The Willow House didn't just take lives, it consumed them, body and soul. Sound, sudden deafening crash, as if the house itself had shifted. Narrator. Emma felt herself being pulled, the shadows swallowing her, dragging her into darkness. Her scream echoed, then faded, leaving only the whispers. Sound, storm raging outside, thunder crashing, wind screaming through broken windows. Narrator, tense, whispering. Emma's body was trembling. The shadows had her completely surrounded, coiling like living ropes, dragging her toward the darkness at the center of the attic. Sound, heavy breathing, dragging footsteps, whispers growing louder, stay, stay. Narrator. She tried to scream, to fight, but the shadows moved faster, stronger, tighter. It was no longer just fear, it was despair, pure and suffocating. Every ounce of her strength felt like it belonged to the house now. Sound, a deep, echoing growl, like the house itself exhaling. Narrator. And then she saw it, a dark figure emerging from the corner, taller than a man, faceless, its presence radiating hunger. Emma knew immediately, this was the entity that had claimed every soul before her. Sound, whispers stopped suddenly, replaced by an eerie silence, then a chilling voice. Welcome home, Emma. Narrator, voice trembling, fading. Her body was lifted, pulled into the shadows. The last thing she saw was the attic door closing itself slowly, cutting off the storm outside. Then, nothing. Sound, heavy silence, faint echo of a heartbeat, then distant whispers echoing. Another guest. Narrator, calm, chilling tone. Days later, neighbors noticed the lights in Willow House flickering. Some claimed to see a figure in the windows, staring out. No one dared enter. And the legend of the house grew. Sound, wind blowing softly, distant thunder, whispers fading away.